Hello everyone, this is Kyle Warsinski and I'm going to be doing my week 7 presentation for MPA 545 on conflict management, dispute resolution design, and training. So the first resource I found was an article by Liberman, Levy, and Siegel on designing an internal organization system for conflict management or conflict management systems, so CMS. This article talks about preparing and performing a needs assessment prior to designing. So you do the needs assessment, then guided design of a system to implement dialogue, consensus, and employee empowerment. The team of individuals working should be internal. So HR, your legal staff, so legal counsel, managers, appropriate managers, and then maybe possibly one external expert is what they recommend. The CMS is based on a set of practices to prevent, manage, and resolve disputes as they arise or before they arise. And then the implementation is described in detail throughout the article. So if you're interested, take a look at that one. The next one I found was Van Erp, Gevers, Rispens, and Dimittori, and that's empowering public service workers to face bystander conflict. This one I found very interesting. It talks about how public safety or just any public service workers face bystander conflict, which poses a threat to the employees, whether it's physical or mental. It induces fear or stress within that actual employee, and often doesn't occur within City Hall or a police department. It occurs out in the field where that public safety worker or public service worker has little to no other resources to help them out. So what's described in this article is a resource enhancement in terms of needing resources to deal with this conflict because it's highly argumentative. So they propose implementation training, and what I found really interesting about this was a term I've never heard before, which was ELT, so experiential learning theory, where you have central role experiences based training. Typically they advise like a half-day training where you perform scenarios on themselves and others, and when it's on others you watch and you mimic what they would be doing and make a decision. So you have experiences to learn from. The third was the video that we requested to find, and that was conflict resolution training, how to manage a team conflict in under 6 minutes. So that's the YouTube link if you'd like to click on that one. Really talks about managing and controlling conflict, but they do note that you need to make sure that you understand what kind of conflict it is. So if it's negative conflict, you stop it. If it's positive conflict that gets to a core issue or can produce a better result, you actually on the sideline fuel that conflict. The best thing you can do is educate, engage, and empower your team and create a plan to measure, determine the path, control, and communicate throughout the organization. The thing I found most interesting from this video was the speaker talked about Tuckman's stages of group development within forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So that's a good one. The last resource I found was the Uri article that Dr. Sundstrom talked about, which is the Bushman and Kalahari Desert and how they worked together to design their own dispute systems based on their needs. So it kind of goes back to that first article where they perform a needs assessment, but it's being done in the Kalahari Desert by Bushmen. So it's a very effective CMS. And the idea that Uri talks about is that CMS performs 6 different functions to prevent. The next 4, and I won't go into those because they're in the article, are all intended to resolve. And then the last one is contain disputes. The most interesting thing I found within this is that the Bushmen also use this concept called third force, which equals the community, and the community itself is an acting force to resolve conflict between disputants, because a conflict at their level within a small community in the desert affects everyone else in the community. So it's real, they treat any conflict amongst two people or a group of people as a huge threat to their livelihoods. So they interact to resolve that. So for the thing we were asked to do was just provide an example of a possible conflict that occurs within a government department. I chose personnel conflict. It's probably one of the easier ones to find. The department I chose is just a planning department, whether it's in a transit agency, a city government, a county government. Most places have planning departments. So the example I chose is a person that is lacking on performance for whatever reason and then starts getting made fun of or jokes because of their lack of performance from other people. So it typically starts out with just fun, but then after a while, that person that's getting made fun of that isn't also performing starts feeling resentment and they start feeling that they're being harassed. So then they start making formal complaints to HR that other people are harassing them, and then that creates a problem that they can kind of get out of not performing because they've made a formal complaint. So what happens is you have loss of productivity, the person getting made fun of increases their absenteeism. They'll have random doctor times off. Interactions between them and the other people are highly confrontational. And then you just start having an overall lack of communication within that department. So what type of DRD levels would I recommend would be somewhat of an informal discussion. Probably isn't going to work because they're already at edge. So I would go ahead and just skip that, skip negotiation, and go to facilitated discussion. Um, what we learn in at least the place I work for is that um, you probably don't want these disputants or people at conflict in the same room at the same time because they're already on edge. So I would have facilitated discussion with both parties individually, with HR and managers that are important for this situation. Training, I would talk about heavily investigate and implement anti-harassment training throughout the entire organization. This would need to be done in person, using information as well as scenarios to go into that experiential learning theory that we discussed earlier, and then have some sporadic tests thrown in there. Doesn't need to be anything grandiose, but have some tests thrown in. So I think that's what I would recommend for this type of conflict. So thank you so much for watching. I look forward to watching all of your presentations as well. Thank you.